There are obvious parallels between poetry and music. 20-something years ago, I even did an honours thesis on the topic. That was not the best time in my life, but apparently I'm recovered enough from it to have read Drop Bear, a book of poetry, and loved it. Well, hello there. It is the 1st of May. I have picked up Drop Bear by Evelyn Araluen from the library. It's a very short book, but it's got really good reviews. She, as an author, has been the recipient of several prizes and scholarships. And this one in particular, the Stella Prize 2022. So I'm keen to give that a bit of a read and find out a bit more about this Australian author. I realised I didn't read out the blurb on the back of the jacket to you. This fierce debut from award-winning writer Evelyn Araluen confronts the tropes and iconography of an unreconciled nation with biting satire and lyrical fury. Drop Bear interrogates the complexities of colonial and personal history with an alternately playful, tender and mournful intertextual voice, deftly navigating the responsibilities that gather from sovereign country, the spectres of memory, and the debris of settler coloniality. This innovative mix of poetry and essay offers an eloquent witness to the entangled present, an uncompromising provocation of history, and an embattled but redemptive hope for a decolonial future. So it says it's a collection of poems and essays, but I wouldn't really call them essays. They're more like little scene vignettes because they're not arguing a point or discussing a particular question like an essay would, but they are really good. I was a little bit worried at first because I'm not super keen on poems that rely on the layout of the words, like that poem there. I find it messes with my way of reading. That's just me. Other than that, I have found this to be, so far, a very enjoyable read. I did mark a couple of things that I wanted to share with you. This is from the Ghost Gum sequence. I've been lugging a childhood from Dad's shed to Sydney in the boot of my car, and it's getting restless. I loved that, partly because I've moved house a lot in my life, and that idea of carrying a lot of your memories and your life in your car really struck me. And then this one that I found really confronting, because here in Tasmania, the Palawa language, the native language, is really a reconstructed language because the white battle against what was already here before European settlers came along was frighteningly successful, and we lost so much history, so much language and culture that was just stamped out. So this I found very confronting and beautiful. The piece is called, and I may pronounce this wrong, so apologies, Learning Bunjalung on Tarawal. And the passage that really struck me was this one, because it's not just learning a new language, but learning a language that was there before English. It's hard to unlearn a language, to unspeak the empire, to teach my voice to rise and fall like landscape, a topographic intonation. I think that's just beautiful. Just such a beautiful turn of phrase for something that is really complicated and relevant in Australia today. I did also do a little sort of flick through the rest of the book because it is quite short, and there is something that I'm particularly keen to get to later on. Not because it was something that I loved, but it was something that made me particularly uncomfortable. And I am a strong believer that art should make you feel something, whether you like it or not. So it doesn't have to be a positive, happy, love kind of emotion. It can be something unsettling. It can be something disturbing. So I think there's a lot of good stuff coming in this book. What's that quote? Art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. I have now today a couple of hours before I'm going out to teach. So I think I'm going to cozy up on the couch with Drop Bear for that time. And I will get a cup of tea, and I might try and convince my cat to join me, but he's probably out enjoying himself. Charging all my things. Gonna reuse the same cup. No point creating extra washing up for myself. Are you at all interested in reading with me?
I was alright.
The book's divided into 3 sections: Gather, Spectre and Debris. I've just finished reading Gather and am about to start Spectre. Oh, I can't say the name on video, but I love the name of this first poem in this section.
And our situation doesn't call for any change.
Oh, I like this. You cannot redeem the pastoral. You cannot kill it and wear its skin. You cannot put back into the earth what you've taken from it. You've disturbed the ancestors. The words are wounds, and that's done now. Accept it. Learn it anew. I've had enough of your grief and your pot planting in our land. These are the dreamings we have now. I'm going with harsh but fair.
On a slow train. You know you don't. Well, you don't have to say anymore.
Oh, this one feels very locked down. Some of this is just playing at peace and sharing desks at the apocalypse.
You cried in ocean while I held my tears inside.
Oh my gosh, I'm already about to start Debris. If you were wanting something for a cozy afternoon read, this is an ideal length, although some of the themes might be a little less cozy.
Let's say you and I just disappear into
This, I've just finished reading one of the vignettes. It's called To the Parents, and really beautiful. That's incredibly moving. This one's called The Inevitable Pandemic Poem.
Maybe when we get there, we'll have our truth. We can take a long ride.
Wow. Starts on page 77. It's called Breath. That, wow. Speaking about being distant, physically distant from home when all you want to do is be there. Be with your people, be with your land. The anxiety of watching the world you know disappear. Just incredible writing. That's really impressive. I've made it to Appendix Australis, which includes the little piece that really stood out to me and moved me a lot when I was just flipping through last night. So let's see if it was just my need for sleep that made it seem so big, or if it still has a similar impact.
Of the shadows in my mind.
Yeah, this is it. Sacrifice the goanna, the black snake, bury your workmates tanned to leather by a hostile sun. Mumble a few words in their honour at twilight. Raise resilient children. Lie half awake at night as possum claws rake the corrugated iron. Build, dwell, expand, maybe eventually belong. But you won't. Not really. The spectre of what you're trying to conceal is written in the metrics of your bush ballad, etched everywhere in the wide dark, watching the solitary homestead, waiting for the final breath that puffs out the last candle when you've muttered that prayer to the wrong hemisphere's God. I think that speaks directly to something that I have been considering in the last few days, which is the particularly white Australian need to feel connected to European roots, that we feel sort of homeless in this part of the world. and it fuels a lot of problems in our society, has done for hundreds of years, and our unwillingness to learn from the people and the cultures that were here before us. It is still unsettling, and it is still important, not just that I needed to get some sleep.
Soul revival, my soul revival, you're my soul revival.
Well, I have technically finished Drop Bear, but I think I want to mull things over a little bit more. I want to let some of those ideas and those words marinate, and maybe read a few sections again. But my initial thoughts are, read this. It's a short book, it's quite quick to read, and especially if you're from Australia or you want to know more about Australia, definitely give this a read. It makes a lot of cultural references, uses some typical Australian language, references to TV shows, to events in our history, modern history, references to poets from generations gone by, and books that we probably all read as children growing up in Australia. Yes, I might have more to say though once I've had some time to think this over. I took some time to think about it, and I do find it really inspiring. If you've done high school level English, you have probably done some kind of poetry study. You've also probably been told that if you take the lyrics to your favourite songs and, you know, just write them out, that's kind of like a poem. This is a fairly oversimplified version of events, but you get the idea. I also enjoy artists like Patti Smith and Laurie Anderson, who would consider themselves poets first, but I came to them as songwriters and musicians. But they do tend to get lumped in with the singers. What does that have to do with Drop Bear? Well, both Smith and Anderson tend to work outside the traditional, you know, long-standing parameters of poetic structure. So does Evelyn Araluen. I am taking note of this because I really did enjoy it, and I want to take more of that freedom of structure and bring that into my own music. That will be a big challenge. I don't know how to approach it yet, but notes taken. Another point that I took inspiration from was the use of like Australian slang. That's something I don't think it comes through at all in my songwriting. I love the way that she expresses ideas using typical Australian language, and I think from the context of what she's written, it's clear what the meaning is. So I'm going to be brave and try and do a bit more of that in my songwriting as well. Who would I recommend this book to? If you're interested in the politics of reconciliation in Australia, definitely you'll get to hear from outside of government sources, from a really creative and beautiful language. In fact, if you're interested in any kind of First Nations politics in any country, you'll probably get a lot out of this book. That probably makes it sound really, you know, serious and all of that sort of stuff, but it's funny. There's lots of humor in here, and it's so beautiful. It's a really lovely, well-crafted introduction to Australia and Australian culture, and you don't need to be, you know, academic level reading to get what's going on in here. I really felt that Evelyn Araluen was so good at crafting simple language to talk about big ideas and big feelings. I did really love this book, and I just want other people to read it and love it too.